What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode. This is your boy Swipa, and y'all already know, whenever we get my dude Jason on, we're gonna have a real interesting conversation about hoops. Jason is one of the best minds when talking about basketball, and I can tell you right now, there are gonna be some things that we argue about, things that we get into. But Jason, I appreciate you coming back onto the show. How you doing, man? How's everything going with the show? How's life?
It's good to see you, my guy. I know it's good times for you. The Nuggets have looked excellent all season. They actually look better than they did last year, which I think is super encouraging. I do have one Jokic take that I wanted to run by you, but I'll save it for later because I'm a little worried about the jumper. But other than that, everything else looks really good for them. The show's doing good. We launched a new YouTube channel this year. That's going well. The Lakers have given us plenty of drama. The Warriors have given us plenty of drama, but it's given us good excuses to dive into a bunch of other teams. This year overall in the league, it has been super interesting because like you could straight up make a case outside of Boston and Denver. You could make a case for everybody else, even the good teams. Like even Minnesota, even Milwaukee, even the Lakers, even the Suns, you can make a case that they're terrible and you could make a case that they're a legit championship contender. Like there's evidence out there for both. So that's what leads to all the great debate, which I'm sure we're going to have plenty of today.
Right. Well, look, let's dive into a thing. We're going to start with a team that you have spent a good amount of years covering. Obviously, you are a very well-known LeBron James fan. And, you know, we talked about them last year a little bit, and we talked about them the start of this year as well. The Lakers currently, I want to say, what are they, 20-21 through 41 games. LeBron and AD have been available for most of these games. Austin Reeves started off real shaky, got demoted to the bench. Vando was out. He comes back. Offense seems to not be there all the way. D'Angelo Russell had an up-and-down season as of late, especially the last game they played. Looked really good versus the Thunder. Darvin Ham has been getting a lot of criticism for lineups, for how he's been coaching the team. Execution, fans don't feel like he's doing enough. Rob Pelinka is being pushed to say we need another move to get another player here right now. So when you are looking at the Lakers right now, are they as bad as they have looked? Meaning basically they've been a bottom 10 team. Are they as bad as what they look, or what do you foresee, barring significant changes, things that will happen to help this team get back to where we both thought they would be in contending status?
My opinion on the Lakers right now is exactly where it was the last time we talked. I was very wrong about how they'd approach the regular season. I thought this team would be, because of all the youth, I thought that they would attack the regular season more. But it's actually, the youth has actually kind of backfired, because one of the main points of criticism towards Darvin Ham, and for the record, I after 2 years of looking at Darvin Ham, I do think he has major issues, and I would definitely say he's one of the bottom tier coaches in the NBA. That said, the majority of the issues the Lakers have are on the effort and focus and night to night kind of energy kind of stuff. I mean, when it comes to the young players, the Darvin Ham thing has been detrimental because he won't make up his mind about what he wants to do. And so he changes the lineup here. There, a guy will be in the lineup consistently in the rotation for a week and a half, and then suddenly he'll get benched, or he'll go 24 minutes one night to 12 the next. And like when you have young players, it really messes with their psyche. That said, it's really this simple to me, and I'll bounce it back to you for a second. The Lakers outside of the in-season tournament are 14-21. Now, do you actually think the Lakers are that bad? Because I know you don't think the Lakers are going to win the title, which is totally fair. Now, I would argue I think the Nuggets are going to win the title. But if I wanted to be a jerk, I could be like, the Nuggets are cooked. They're not going to win because of what I saw last night. The offense is bad. They're cooked. And statistically speaking, I'm probably going to be right, because the Nuggets, even though I believe they're going to win, it's just more likely that one of the other 29 teams wins. And so whether or not a team can win the title is like, everyone can. No one has a great shot. Some teams just have a better shot than others. That said, let me just bounce it back to you. Do you think the Lakers 14-21 in non-in-season tournament games, do you think that's an accurate representation of how good they are?
Here's the thing. I don't think that they are 14-21 bad. Going into the year, I had them as the number 3 seed coming into the year. But to be clear, I also had the Suns as the number 2 seed. Again, they have a bevy of players coming off the bench. Gabe Vincent missed time. Rui Hachimura missed time. Austin Reeves started off slow. And then on top of that, adding Jackson Hayes, adding the players they added, I figured they would give a lot more youth run. LeBron wouldn't have to be as good as he needed to be last year leading into January before the injury to even give them a float. And then Anthony Davis has also been there healthy for most of this year. Here's the thing. Are they as bad as 14-21 outside of the in-season tournament? No. Are they as bad even as being 20-21 on the season altogether? No. But I think the things that I have not seen from them, their defense is not as good as it was last year. And the thing that really got them over the top from the All-Star break on, when they went on that run, it was their defense being far and away the best in the league. They were able to put pressure on you. Their three-point shooting has been in the dog water all season this year. They've been inconsistent with their lineups. You don't even know night in, night out basis outside of AD and Braun who's going to consistently show up. And even the thing with Austin, we had a whatever, not a little tit for tat or whatever on Twitter. When you talked about Austin Reeves and building a viable championship level defense around Reeves, I just don't think Austin Reeves as a third option is good enough to be able to get the Lakers where they want to get. I think that LeBron, as good as he's been, I can't trust that a 39-year-old LeBron, by the time May comes around, that he's going to be this version of himself, that he's going to be fully healthy. I think for me, asking the Lakers to take a team, and I think LeBron is their best player. And again, people can make the argument Anthony Davis, a two-way Bible. He's 27 and 12 and adding 3 blocks a game, 1.5 steals a game, all that stuff. But I think when you have a player that has the playmaking deficiencies that AD does, it's going to come down to LeBron. It's going to come down to his late game shot making. It's going to come out to his pull-up shooting. I think that if you're asking Braun to do something that no other 39-year-old player has ever done, with also having an inconsistent roster around them, you have too many players that are one-way players. Austin Reeves, not a two-way player. Vando, not a two-way player. D'Lo, not a two-way player. So, there's a lot of specialists. And I don't know if you remember this. Michael Malone talked about this too. Specialists, they don't play in the playoff because the Nuggets have done it on their end to build a team that doesn't have one-way valuable players. Now, Jamal Murray's not an incredible defender. We know that. He's not going to sit down and just lock you up. But the thing is, Jamal adds enough defense plus having an all-NBA level offensive game in the playoff setting that it kind of overshadows any deficiency he might have. Because you saw, LeBron getting him on a switch. They're trying to hunt for that switch, and then he has to get back to Austin Reeves. Austin gets wide open three-pointers off in the Western Conference Finals. So there's things you have to do for these players. But right now, I didn't think going into the season that they had enough to be able to put them over the top. But now they are even worse than what I thought they would be. So, and then plus, if you have and here's the thing, they're not going to fire Darvin Ham in the regular season. They're just not going to do that. He went to the Western Conference Finals last year. Rob Pelinka himself hired him. So they're not going to do that a year and a half to the game. So for me is, if you're going to have questions at the coaching, you're going to have questions with the roster. And even if they make a Levine trade, even if they make, whoever the other player is they're going to get, not named Pascal Siakam, you're still going to have arguably the worst coach, meaning the worst scheme, the worst adjustment in any series you walk into. Now, maybe you're able to get away with that versus a Warriors team if you see them, or versus one of these other teams, maybe the Kings or whatever else. But right now, the Thunder are fully locked in. I don't know if they have an answer for Anthony Davis, so maybe they're too young, maybe they're not ready. I can fully expect that. But Minnesota with Chris Finch, they have a solid 8 they can play every single game. They have a very, very good best half-court defense in the league. Now, their offense isn't going to be where it needs to be, but I think if you tell me right now where they are, if the Lakers saw Minnesota, if they saw the Thunder, I think those series would be a lot harder than we would have predicted going into this season. So as of right now, I just don't think they got the dudes. I don't think they got the coaching. I don't even think the culture of what the Lakers are going through, I don't even think that's ready for championship basketball.
Oh, they're a broken team for the most part. There's no doubt. That said, they resemble a lot of the stuff that you're seeing is super, super typical for LeBron teams around this time of year. I did a bit on my show yesterday. If you go back through basically every season since LeBron left Miami, this has happened more than half the time. So you go back to 2015, they're stuck in the mud. They're 19 and 20. They make a trade for J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert. Then they re-engage post-deadline. They make the finals. 2016, not as bad, but they bail on their coach in the middle of the season. Like, I was at one of the games during the late phase of David Blatt. I watched the body language. LeBron wasn't even coming out of the tunnel until right before tip. Like, they had issues, right? They fire their coach, they make a run, they go to the finals. 2017, did you know that they lost 14 of their last 25 games going into the playoffs? They lost 14 of their last 25 games and then swept everybody on their way to the finals. 2018, LeBron plays like absolute dog, you know what, for the end of December all the way through to the deadline. And then he literally, in the Minnesota game, when he hits the one-leg game win over Jimmy Butler, re-engages, goes crazy. They make the finals. You go to 2019 when LeBron's not even playing and all the guys are freaked out about getting traded and everyone's playing like crap, right? You go to 2022, same exact thing. Last year, they're 2-10. They're lifeless right before the deadline. Literally, they had that really bad loss at home to the Thunder. I don't know if you remember that one, the one where Anthony Davis was terrible. And then they make the trade. They turn around, they go 18-8 down the stretch. So again, when it comes to the effort and energy, because I think you and I both agree they have underachieved this year. Like, the actual talent on the roster is much better than the record would demonstrate, even if we accept that they're not a contender. So the point is like, they're clearly in this classic LeBron January phase where they hate their coach. They don't. All the players are unhappy because of where they're at in the rotation. In general, they're just kind of lifeless, right? So that said, eventually, when they get past February, I do think you're right that there's no chance they fire Darvin Ham because forget about Rob. Jeannie wants him, and Jeannie will get rid of him. So like, eventually, LeBron, AD, and the rest of those groups guys will just have to look at each other and be like, you know what, we got to move forward, right? Where I disagree with you is the Lakers have a lot of specific things that bode well for playoff teams. So, for instance, I'll give you some examples. They have the 8th most wins in the league against teams that are above 500, including 2 wins against the Thunder, 2 wins against the Clippers. You know, they've got some big wins this year. They are 3rd in defensive rebounding percentage. That always bodes well for playoff teams. They are 5th in points in the paint. That always bodes well for playoff teams. They are 8th in half-court defense, all despite giving absolutely atrocious effort night to night. Like, they're barely trying compared to the rest of the league, and they're a top 10 half-court defense. In the clutch, they've been a top 10 clutch team. They have a 122 offensive rating in clutch situations. They have not struggled to score in close games late when the game slows down. To kind of, if you look at just the in-season tournament games where they're 7-0, and there's a lot of bad teams in there, but there's some good teams in there too. They beat the shit out of a Pacers team that struggled, that literally the Celtics couldn't stop and the Bucks couldn't stop. And then the Lakers shut them down, right? That was a Pelicans team. That's a really good basketball team that the Lakers punked for the world to see in a major single elimination game. The first 2 Suns games, it was just KD, but the one in the in-season tournament, it was KD and Devin Booker. They manhandled them and they beat them, right? So the point, if you look at the in-season tournament games and the clutch situations, they've been really good on offense and really good on defense. That does not solve all those problems. What it does show to me, though, is I still feel exactly the same way I did before the season. They can't beat Denver right now. I don't think they can. Denver's just better. I've said this on my show before. At this point, if Denver's 5 guys are healthy, I would be surprised if they didn't win the title. That's where I'm at with Denver right now, because I see flaws up and down the league. When you go after the Nuggets, it's like with Boston, it's late game decision making. It's all the same stuff from years past, which has caused them to lose a lot of high profile games this year. Philly, it's Embiid's playoff history, his injury history, whether or not he can make jump shots. Is Tyrese Maxey capable of making enough plays on offense in a playoff setting, right? Milwaukee Bucks, their point of attack defense is legitimately terrible. Like, the Lakers are a defense that can defend, that hasn't been defending. The Bucks are a bad defensive team. That's just what they are, right? Like, even if we go into the Western Conference, the Thunder are too small. They don't defensive rebound. They don't have any veteran experience. I don't think the Thunder are very good in terms of a playoff, like, championship contender. Minnesota Timberwolves cannot score in the half court offensively. They're a really, really good defensive team. The defense is legit, but they are really limited against elite defenses in the half court in a slow down environment. So you can literally knock every single team outside of the Nuggets, in my opinion. So the Lakers have their issues. What it will require, though, in my opinion, for the Lakers to even have a chance, they have to nail a trade at the deadline, specifically finding high-level players for the 2 and the 3. They need to go Austin, LeBron, AD with 2 good two-way players in the middle. Specifically, like, for instance, they need to get someone like a DeJounte Murray, someone that can like beat people off the dribble, defend at the point of attack, do a lot of that kind of stuff. DeJounte's also having a good off-ball season there. Then from there, you need everyone to re-engage. In my opinion, they've got to play really good basketball post-deadline. I mean, literally just like what they did last year. To your point, I think they're better than what they've shown in the regular season. But if they're 500 going into the playoffs, I give them zero chance. I do not think you can win the title without attacking the regular season. They have to have like a 18-8 stretch or a 17-9 stretch or 19-7 stretch, whatever you want to call it, post-deadline, where for an extended stretch, they look really good. I'm just saying, even though it's a long shot, and I agree with you, it's a long shot, acting like it can't happen is something I disagree with, because LeBron James and Anthony Davis, when they engage themselves physically, are a huge pain in the ass in the playoffs. It's just a fact. Austin Reeves, all of the discussion around the defense, he was a functional, good team defender last year for the Lakers in the postseason. There was never a point during the postseason where the conversation was Austin is the problem with this defense. So it's something I profoundly disagree with.
There were other target options. Well, first off, I just want to update you. So Woj just announced the Pascal Siakam trade. The Pacers are finalizing. They're finalizing a trade to acquire Pascal Siakam in a deal that will send Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks to the Toronto Raptors. And New Orleans will be the 3rd team in the deal, sending Kyra Lewis to the Raptors as well. Do you have any initial thoughts on that?
Well, okay. First of all, for the Pacers, I love it. What I'd love to see them do now is like turn around and make some sort of trade for another veteran guy. It'd be cool to see them go after I talked about this actually with my buddy Combo earlier today. Like, what if they went and got Gordon Hayward for the 3 and they went with like Halliburton, Aaron Nesmith, Hayward, and then Siakam, and then Turner? That'd be kind of, they're not a championship contender, but that'd be an interesting team. The other thing too is watch out for Bruce Brown, because RJ Barrett plays the same position. What if the Lakers go out and get Bruce Brown for the 2? That would be a really, really interesting
so would that be a D'Lo trade then for Bruce?
Yeah, it'd be a D'Lo trade. And it'd be D'Lo plus probably like a first-round pick and maybe actually, I don't even know if they'd have to include a first there. It'd be interesting to see. But maybe you end up throwing in
how much better is Bruce than a D'Lo, do you think, for a trade value?
I think Bruce has more trade value than D'Lo, for sure. I don't think D'Lo is a negative asset, but I don't think he's a positive asset either. I think he's one of those guys where if he was in the trade, because D'Lo is a good playmaker and a good off-ball shooter, he has to play alongside a lot of athleticism in the backcourt for it to work. So like with D'Lo, the way I'd look at it is like, you have RJ Barrett already in Toronto. They don't really have a high-level playmaker in Toronto. So if you have all that athleticism and then you put D'Lo kind of organizing things, there might be some value there. They might have to include like a Jalen Hood-Schifino as like a young player to excite them, or maybe even a first-round pick. But that, in general, just watch out for Bruce Brown to go somewhere. Don't be surprised if someone tries to make some kind of move for Bruce. What about the Knicks? Like the Knicks might be a team that could look at Bruce
the
Brown
Knicks,
too.
Philly might be a good option for him. I know the Suns, even though they don't have necessarily the assets.
I don't think they have the assets. Yeah.
The Mavericks, Bruce Brown with Luka sitting next to Lively. I mean, there's some options for him. So wait, with this trade for Pascal, they got 3 firsts for an expiring contract. Pascal Siakam, obviously, he had to agree to that he was going to sign there long term in order for them to make that deal. Do you think this changes the trade market for other teams, for Levine or for DeJounte Murray, because of the deal that they just got?
I mean, it's going to throw off everything from the standpoint of the conversation. Like, don't be surprised if like nothing happens until February 8th, because everyone's like, well, Pascal got 3 firsts. So we want, this is Laurie, so we want 5, or, this is Jeremy Grant, so we want 3, or whatever it is. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it complicates negotiations. But at the end of the day, like when it comes to February 8th, if you're a team that, is going to lose a guy who's on an expiring or who wants to cash in, like people will eventually, be willing to make a move. I think Indy basically overpaid to get it done, right? I mean, that's kind of what it feels like.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, look, this is there's a lot of stuff happening in the league right now. I think it was also just confirmed that the the Serbian assistant coach for Golden State. I think he also passed away as well because they had the delay today in the game. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So obviously, for all my Serbians that are in the listener, just want to give a deep sense of condolences for everybody in there. Don't want to let the moment pass without saying that. I know what that means for a lot of you all, and obviously we'll be able to talk about that more. But I just wanted to at least mention that. But look, man, I'm not gonna hold you, bro. There's I think the way the NBA is shaping up. Let me ask you this, because a lot of people are seemingly putting Boston and Denver in a different category by themselves. Now, this is what I'll say about Denver. I think Denver looks really impressive right now, but I also know that with Peyton, Christian, Julian, Zeke, those are 4 players that are all year 4 or younger. The Nuggets are going to be relying on in a playoff setting. And, they haven't looked great versus plus 500 teams so far this year. Some of that is just because of Jamal Murray was out for a lot of those games.
Yeah,
and
they
lost a lot of those games on the road. They lost 3 games to the Rockets. Doesn't mean much of anything for me personally. They lost 2 games to the Thunder. They had Christian Brown and Peyton Watson closing one of those games as well. So there's a lot of different things that are kind of affecting the league. Jason, I'm not gonna lie to you. I can genuinely tell you that I do not trust that in a playoff setting, Boston is going to be able to put teams away. They went 6th with Trae Young last year because they couldn't guard the point of attack. They were getting killed in drop coverage, and their shot making fell apart for 2 games in that series. And then they went 7 games with the Sixers, with Doc Rivers, with no Embiid in the first game of that year. And then they were down 3-2. And if the Sixers get a good game from Joel Embiid, that series is over. It's over. And then you get into the Heat series last year when they get pushed all the way to 7. Should have been done in 6, but then Derek White gets to put back because, they don't get a good box out. And the next thing you know, it goes to game 7. Tatum twists his ankle. I cannot say at this point in time that I think that Boston in the Eastern Conference at the very least is the runaway favorite. And I think there's a lot more teams like the Clippers that people are talking about in the Western Conference because people just are living with this idea. Well, it's Paul George and Kawhi. One of them is bound to get injured. Or, hey, they've never done anything before. Now Zubac is out for the next at least 4 weeks and beyond, because he's going to get reevaluated in 4 weeks. So they're missing a big.
Probably 6 weeks.
Mason Plumlee. Right. They still got Daniel Tice. But here's the thing. Do you think that right now, coaching, scheme, late game execution, pull-up shot making, Tatum still doing that, do you still think that right now that the Boston Celtics should be like the clear favorite, given all of the things that go into playing high-level playoff basketball, especially half-court playmaking, half-court shot making, and then the ability to be able to coach and deal with adversity on the fly? Do you still feel that confident should they see the Heat or the Bucks or the Sixers in one of those rounds?
I would pick Boston over everybody except for Denver right now. Now, to be clear, like, this is a better Boston team than last year. Tatum is bigger, stronger, a little bit wiser, right? The Porzingis does legitimately change the dynamic of their offense. That said, like, I keep watching Celtics games and then being like, what the heck are they doing? Like, right. I literally watched that Bucks game the other day, and again, I get it. Second night of a back-to-back, really emotional overtime game in Minnesota the night before, right? So or at home against Minnesota the night before. So I want to be clear, I'm not taking that as the end-all be-all. What bothered me was the process. I'm like sitting there and I'm like, okay, the weak point in Milwaukee's defense is their guards, and Tatum and Brown are just taking pull-up jump shots over Giannis and Middleton, as they're digging a hole. I'm like, what are they doing? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that's like the thing with the Celtics is like they're betting so much on like Tatum making pull-up threes, and he hasn't made them for the most part until recently. In this last month, he's been hitting them. But and that's the thing, is like maybe he'll break through. But like when we're looking at the like a safe bet, the way I look at it is like any flaw that I can find in Boston as it pertains to their half-court offensive execution is a smaller flaw, in my opinion, than what Milwaukee brings to the table, than what Philly brings to the table. Like, I think Boston would beat Philly easily this year. I I just don't think that they're going to have much of an issue with them unless that's the one thing that's always a wrinkle in the East is like, what if Miami makes a trade? What if Philly makes a trade? Right? Like that it could get more complicated. But that said, like to me, Denver, when you look at the core 5 players for Denver, just the core 5, and like before we even talk about the bench, and you're right, there's the bench. It's obviously it's an issue, but it was an issue last year. It was the same issue last year, right? And like I would argue Peyton Watson being so damn good is like that takes away any concern that I had involving Bruce Brown being out. Like Peyton Watson is just good. Like he's just really, really good. Him knocking down that corner 3 consistently has been such a nice kind of option for them, especially when they go away from Michael Porter Jr. in clutch time situations. But if you look at the core 5 for Denver, they are literally flawless. They're an excellent half-court defense. They're an excellent half-court offense. They're well coached. They're versatile. They can defend in multiple ways. They can score in multiple ways. I just view them as flawless. And that's why if they're healthy, I just do not see a team beating them 4 times out of 7 at this current point. We'll see when trades take place. But like Boston, it's like, will they do the right stuff? Like if they end up in an Eastern Conference Finals with Milwaukee, will they go out of their way to deliberately attack Dame and Malik every single time to compromise the defense and let Tatum and Brown play off of that rather than doing, just attacking Middleton and Giannis? And we'll see. So like, I want to be clear. I think Boston's really damn good. I think they're clearly the second best team in the league. I think they're clearly a level above everybody but Denver. But to me, Denver is clearly a discernible level above Boston.
So let me ask you this, because I think this is what confuses me. Not you, but I think conversations about the Eastern Conference. Miami's been to the Eastern Conference 3 of the last 4 years. Most people aren't picking them
finals. Yeah, Eastern Conference.
Miami's been to the finals in 2 of the last 4 years. Most people ain't picking them to come back. Miami has gone out, beat Boston, beat the Bucks. Most people are like, so what? Miami beat the 76ers. People are like, okay. And I think the funny thing about Miami is you can't tell me a coach or a team that you would trust more in a 4-quarter setting than Miami, in a playoff setting, in a half-court setting than Miami, just simply because at least, the very least, Jason, we know they're going to get into what they need to get into. That we can trust Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, with this new resurgence of all of a sudden Duncan Robinson is playing moderately good defense, and he
was hooping in the playoffs last year. Give him some credit.
Right. Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, and now Tyler Hero's here. So then add Jaime Jaquez, at 6'6", 24 years old, into that mix, and then you still got Kevin Love, Haywood Highsmith. Jason, am I tripping? Is it not possible that the Eastern Conference, at the end, all Dame trade, Drew trade, whoever the 76ers get, it still runs through the Heat? Just because if you get into a dogfight with us, and then on top of that, if Jimmy Butler's healthy going into each one of these rounds, so basically he's going to be able to match Tatum bar for bar. He's going to be able to outshoot Giannis. And you just get into a situation. I'm beside myself, because just like how you talk about LeBron and AD in the West, they're kind of LeBron and AD in the East. Because great pull-up shooting, they can get to the rim, they have shooters around them, and Bam Adebayo, even if you think AD is the best defender in the league, Bam ain't that much worse. And he's more portable.
He's close.
He's better at switching. He can play at the level. He can play drop. He just doesn't block shots at the rim. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, Jason. Like, are we really just like the numbers, the roster, the talent? Are we just kind of overlooking reality? And at the end of the day, it might just end up being that Miami just schematically, culturally, and they got the top end talent plus the role players, they might just be better than everybody.
This is what I look at with Miami. Like the popping of Duncan Robinson, of Tyler Herro, of Jaime Jaquez, that has been what's helped them be a much better regular season team. That and Bam is having a great season, shooting like 45% on pull-up jump shots this year. So Bam's having a great year, although he's cooled off with his pull-up jumper since the start of the year. He came out the gates like 55%. And it's kind of slowly been working its way down. But here's the thing. I still don't think they have a legitimate playoff shot creator outside of Jimmy Butler. And so what concerns me with that is, like, I don't think I would ever view them as like a legitimate championship contender, like going, because here's the thing. They made the finals last year, but they had no shot of beating Denver. Like, no shot. Like, I remember sitting down with I can't remember who it was I was talking to right before that series, but we both went back and forth and we were like, is there any way that Miami can beat Denver? And we couldn't even like conceptualize what it would look like beyond Nikola Jokic getting hurt, right? So point being, like, I look at Miami in with two outcomes. If they make a significant upgrade and bring in a secondary shot creator, I think they legitimately enter that tier with Boston,
like a
just
DeJounte level shot maker.
Yeah, just simply just DeJounte. Let's just call it DeJounte Murray. If the Heat got DeJounte Murray, I would look at them as the same level as Boston, because Jimmy, Bam, Eric Spoelstra, a legitimate secondary shot creator, that to me would give like you'd just be foolish to count them out at that point. If they don't, though, these last few years, Miami is like, they're almost like, to me, a filter. And what I mean by that is, like, they're a team that can expose teams that are not good enough, but they can't beat teams that are good enough, if that makes sense. Like, that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, they expose Boston, they expose Milwaukee for their flaws. But when they run into like a legitimate traditional championship team,
the 2020 Lakers,
they just don't have the firepower. That's kind of the way I look at it. So like, they got to have, I think if you give them a legitimate secondary shot creator, a legitimate upgrade in terms of an athlete that can help them create shots, I think that pushes them up into that conversation, because I really do think Spoelstra is the best coach in the league. I mean, when I saw that deal, isn't it crazy that, like, for basically what you pay the mid-level exception player, you can get the best coach in the league right now? Yeah, it's kind of crazy how the market works there, because like, it's not in the cap. So like, I can't believe like someone's not under the table like, hey, Spoelstra, we'll give you $30 million. Come coach for us. You know, like, do something like that. But but that said, we'll see how that goes over the next few decades. But yeah, I look at, without a trade, they're a filter. They expose the fraudulence, right? But with the trade, I think they have the firepower. That's where they become more.
Well, I guess because right now, I don't think the Bucks. I'm not gonna hold you. I don't think the Bucks are beating the Heat in the series right now. I really don't. Like, I think there's
Heat?
two. I don't think the Bucks are beating the Heat right now, as of right now. But here's why: like, so you're gonna go band for band, you're gonna go shot for shot with the Heat. Cool. But at the end of the day, when it comes to sitting down, we're gonna sit down and make. And by the way, let me ask you a great question, Jason. I love this type of. You know, I love historical questions. For you, what is the best series you've ever seen from Damian Lillard outside the first round?
Oh. Outside of the first round, that's a tough one. Yeah, because my mind, as soon as you said that, my mind went to the Thunder series. Gosh, man,
Warriors,
really
2019 playoffs in the Western Conference Finals, didn't play well there. Nuggets, second round, didn't play well there. Then you had the series versus, after they beat the Rockets in the first round that year, whoever they played, I forgot who they played 2014 in the playoffs that year.
That's too far in the back. That's too far back. Well, and that, to your point, that's the thing, is like, I'd have to look it up. And the problem there is, like, he doesn't have an icon. Like, CJ McCollum against the Nuggets after the Thunder series is a more impactful and resonant playoff series than anything Dame's done outside of the first round. That said, I wouldn't read too much into that from the standpoint of, like, that Portland team was doomed to fail every single year because they weren't good defensively in the front court.
When have you seen him versus elite set defenses be able to get off his shot? Here's the thing about Dame. Dame is a spectacular shot maker. He's also 6 feet tall, basically. He's like 6'1", but he's just not a big player. I remember we talked about this before, and I said, you know, I think you asked me, do you think Dame could get better in screen navigation and stuff? I said, I've been watching Dame since he was at Weber. No. He's too small. And, like, he's not like a physically, like, imposing, like, you know, he's not like Patrick Beverly gritty. He's not like Drew Holiday strong. So when he's trying to navigate, like, he just doesn't have the body. He doesn't have the lean to get there. And then on top of that, he's also like a little lazy in transition too. So he does get beat.
He's lazy on defense. When I watch him on film, it's kind of embarrassing.
Right. He's not sprinting to a spot. And even if he closes out, so who's he closing out on? 6'1".
Yeah, he's not bothering a shooter.
That's what I'm saying. So I think some of this is Dame. He's going to have to be like a, you know, Western Conference Finals Jamal Murray level, or a Anthony Edwards pull up, you know, first round, or a Devin Booker. I don't say he doesn't have to be like Devin Booker Clippers, but just below that. For me, I think he would have to be about that level for the Bucks to be able to make it out of the East, because they have no hope. If their best option to guarding on the wing, Ajax, and then Jay Crowder, and then hopefully Giannis can scare enough people off balls as a defender. And right now, I don't know, Brook Lopez is kind of cooked. So if you're playing drop coverage versus these people consistently, and your screen navigation is trash, and your off-ball defense, Malik Beasley, no communication whatsoever. And again, they're playing the Heat, who are not going to have those issues because they're going to do their job. They're not going to. The thing about the Heat is they make you beat them. They're not going to beat themselves. I can't say that about the Bucks because the Bucks did it last year. So I think for me at this point in time, if you told me they got into a playoff setting, like in the first round, for instance, I'm not saying it's going to be 5 like it was last year, but I can see that series going 6 and going 7 for sure.
So I'm not worried about Dame on the offensive end because you're going to win 2 games in a series just off of Giannis bully ball, flying out in transition in Milwaukee where you win by 25 and the late game stuff doesn't matter. Because Dame is no longer the best player on his team, what you really need is like 2 or 3 times in a 7-game series for him to go on a fourth quarter shot making run and to pull out a game for you. So like, I'm not worried about the offensive end at all. I am worried about the defensive end, but what's specifically interesting about it is if you look at, Philly with Tyrese Maxey has a really good guard, but like the guard play, Boston has the guards, but
with
they
Derek
don't.
White.
But will they use them? Like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The Western Conference is where it's just every single series you're going to go up against. It's Jamal Murray, it's Steph Curry, it's De'Aaron Fox. Like it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's like you're guarding incredible guards in every single one of those series, right? So
you got Jalen Brunson with the Knicks though.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, but are the Knicks good enough elsewhere? But they might be. We'll see.
Right.
But my point is like I am more worried about the defensive end than I am the offensive end in terms of like, can Dame succeed in the late rounds of the playoffs? I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be able to make enough shots. It's just, will they be able to eventually get enough stops? And it's funny. I was looking at it, and with their asset situation, and with how well Malik Beasley's shooting. And Malik Beasley, to his credit, he's trying on defense. And he is actually a reasonably quick 6'2", somewhat stocky guy. So, like, he can be decent. He hasn't been, but he can be. And so, like, with the Bucks, I almost think they have to look at themselves as like a Denver in the sense that, like, you just need to get everybody in that 5 to buy into their role and be a mediocre defense, right? Like a 15-10 kind of defense. And then you need to be unguardable offensively. And the bigger concern to me is like, I watched that, who did the Bucks lose to last week? I'm trying to remember.
The Kings? No, not the Kings. They lost.
Didn't they beat the Kings? That's right. They
lost to Utah.
No, but they beat somebody at the buzzer. Was that the Kings?
Yeah, that was the Kings. They beat at the buzzer with the Dame
the
shot.
zone game. Yeah, where Dame hit the shot. They ran a lot of Dame Giannis pick and roll at the end of that game in the fourth quarter in OT. There was a lot of bad process stuff there, missing openings. At one point, they were running into each other, like Dame snaked the pick and roll right into Giannis's rolling lane, and they ran into each other. Like they have to, like last night, the Nuggets offense was so bad down the stretch. They did so much stupid stuff. It's not even funny. And to Philly's credit, they got him to rush and like kind of play too fast. But that's highly unusual. Generally speaking, Denver all season, they get into a late game situation and it's like they just know exactly what to do in the exact spots on the floor, and they're going to get a good shot every single time down the floor. That's the point that Milwaukee has to get to, in my opinion. And for the record, that kind of thing takes time. And so I think that's their goal. I just don't think there's a player that they can get. Like I've seen people say, like, well, what if they go get Javon Carter? And it's like, okay, that's great. But Malik Beasley's shooting 47% from 3 or whatever. Like at a certain point, like unless it's a good two-way player.
And not small. Javon's like 6'2".
But Javon can defend.
Point is, but we saw this with Gabe Vincent too, though. Like he can defend, but I'm saying
He's
if you
small,
get
but
one
he's
of
small.
these bigger guards you're talking about, well, cool. Like, well, he's still tiny. So like, I think for me, that's kind of been the evolution too, though, Jason. Because I think like you can be a good defender, but if you're small and you're playing versus the bigger teams when you get to those situations, well, I mean, we're still taking advantage of that because even if you get in pick and roll, you're navigating well. Well, if I get a switch on you with a wing or with a big, now you got to collapse your defense, and we're in full control of everything else for the rest of this possession. So I think for the Bucks, the bigger they get, the better, because I think that's what Giannis needs to be best optimized defensively.
But their big players are young. Like it's like or old. Like it's like I saw somebody in my YouTube comments the other day. They're like, Jay Crowder's coming back. We're gonna be fine. I was like, what?
Right.
Hold on. And it's like, or you could throw, Marjan Beauchamp out there. You could throw Andre Jackson Jr. out there. You could do it, but like Andre Jackson Jr. and Marjan Beauchamp are kids. They're young. I mean, they're men, but they're kids relative to the NBA. And so the point is, I agree with you. Like you could go big, but I'm not sure that they have good enough. Like at the end of the day, let's just put it real simply. Is Malik Beasley their fifth best player? Probably. Right? I mean, probably.
I mean, regular season, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's the thing is like you don't want to solve the problem by putting your 10th best player in there. You know what I mean? So like that's where it becomes an issue. So like
Malik Beasley
if they can't upgrade Malik significantly to a better player, because they don't have the assets, then their best bet is to lean into Malik and just try to be unguardable offensively and try to construct a defensive scheme that works for that group. It's not ideal. I agree with you. But like that's just the predicament they put themselves in.
Who's the Heat's best player
the
right
Dame
now?
Trade.
Who's the Heat's fifth best player right now?
Fifth best player. Let's see. I think Duncan and Tyler are both playing really well. I mean, you could make a case it's Jaime Jaquez, right?
Yeah,
I mean, otherwise you're looking at like Josh Richardson, maybe.
But that's what we're talking about, though. So if you're saying sit down, defense, slow the game down, okay, well then Dame, Malik, Chris Middleton, and then as opposed to Jimmy, Jaime, and Josh Richardson, or whoever else you're going to tell here, or whoever, like I just trust that they're going to be able to get into their actions more and more. And so anyway, that's my whole thing. I do think the Heat, I think the East potentially could still run through them, because until Boston shows me that they're able to get through a process and put away teams early in the playoff and be able to not get into these dogfights with the Hawks in the first round, then we'll have different discussions and all that. So, but I don't know. I'm curious. I'm actually think this is going to be one of the most engaging years if everybody's going to be healthy. I want to ask you about this though. What's holding you back, if at all, from looking at the Clippers and saying they're the clear second best team in the West? And what path do you think they would have to create to get themselves into a situation where you feel like they could beat the Nuggets in a 7-game series?
So again, it's the same thing. Like you can't write them off because all of the other teams in that tier are flawed. But once again, it's the same stuff that we learn from NBA history as it pertains to the playoffs. Like they take the second most pull-up jump shots in the league. They're a bottom 10 defensive rebounding team, and they don't score in the paint. Those are three things that are just like historical indicate you can win with that. Like the Raptors in 2019 were a bad defensive rebounding team and they won. The Milwaukee Bucks in 2021, they took a lot of pull-up jump shots and they won. Like you can, but like when you have all three of those factors working against you, it's trouble. And then like I saw some people last night saying like, oh, people can't talk about the Clippers without bringing up weird stuff like arbitrary concepts like playoff juju and stuff like that. And it's like, here's the thing, like it's not a mysterious thing. It's the reality of James Harden at this phase of his career, especially because he's not as good of an athlete. When the physicality and the stuff goes up a level, it's kind of like what happens to D'Angelo Russell, right? Except for James Harden's just a better version of that.
Right.
But like he can't get to the rim and finish like he used to. He turns the ball. Like he had a bunch of 5+ turnover games last year in the postseason. The one thing he did have going last year was his pull-up jump shot, but even then it was like only in a couple of games, and then he had other games where it was bad. So like the reality is like they just have a bunch of question marks like all the other contenders. Now the reason why they're winning right now, in my opinion, is they are constructed to be a really good a regular season team. They have tons of offense. They've got highly motivated guys like Paul George and Kawhi are healthy really for the first time in a long time, right? Like James Harden is legitimately in a contract year. How well he plays right now will be the difference between whether or not he can sign 4 for 120 or 4 for 100, or if he's going to something bad could happen, right? So like contract year, lots of talent, healthy stars for the first time. Like there's just a lot of optimism going on in that group, which doesn't undercut them. But like what I am generally the kind of guy that doesn't overreact to regular season basketball. It's just who I am, right? Like last year, even though the Nuggets were struggling in the regular season, I never removed them from my contenders list just because I was like, this is what happens. Like teams will go through a month or two where they're like, shit, man, like we're playing every other night and it's like the Pistons tomorrow. And then we have to travel to Minnesota and play the Timberwolves. And it just kind of wears you down mentally. And so again, like I wouldn't count them out. They're definitely in that contender tier, but like typically
what's the difference between them this year and the Suns? Because I know you were higher on the Suns last year. Do you think it's just the caliber of players that Kevin Durant was going into that trade, the 47 games, and then in the MVP conversation, and then I guess because you were high on them and they had a very similar kind of construction where they were very high variance, pull up 2-point shooting team in particular. They went into the playoff with that kind of mindset. Do you just see a distinct difference between how the two are formulated, or maybe it's just your method has kind of changed over the last year?
Well, so a couple things. First of all, when the Suns first made that trade last year, I looked at it as a 2-year kind of move. I actually said going into that postseason, I was like, do not judge Kevin Durant for this because this is the year before they can go into the summer and kind of load up on all these specific archetypes. The thing that I kind of underestimated with the Suns is Kevin Durant. I think we kind of got off the scent a little bit from the standpoint of his pull-up shooting because in Golden State, he just had so much space to operate. And then he was just really damn good in 2021. Like, give him some credit. In the 2021 playoff run, he was just insane. But it's been a consistent trend since then that he cools off as a jump shooter in the playoffs, which is something that is somewhat concerning. But that said, like, I still think KD is a top tier superstar. I just think the Suns have some limitations in terms of like their physicality. But then you see games like last night and it's like KD plays the center and just locks in on defense and suddenly they look amazing. So they're another team, just like everybody else in that tier. It's like, if the Bucks figure out how to be a mediocre defense and they solve their pick and roll stuff and get that up to an unguardable level, they can win the title. If the Lakers make a smart midseason trade and they buy back in post deadline and play really good basketball for a month, they can win the title. If the Oklahoma City Thunder, trade for Lauri Markkanen and suddenly they have all this talent, like, they can win the title. The LA Clippers, if they hold up. But one of the things that concerns me with the Clippers too is like they're one of those teams where it's like they can go really small and then get absolutely pulverized on the glass. I saw a stat this morning, like they're giving up an offensive rebound on like 50 or like 44.3%. I can't remember the exact number, but they're giving up an offensive rebound on almost half of their opponent's misses in clutch situations, which is a major concern. You put Zubac out there, it's like teams are going to attack him in pick and roll in the playoffs. Like that's just a thing that's going to happen, right? So like all of these teams, it's like if things go right, they can do it. And Denver's the one team where it's like we know it's going to go right as long as their guys are healthy, which is why I keep coming back to that. It's like if they're healthy, I just expect them to win. I just do, because they're the one team that you can't point to that one thing and go like, like that's concerning. Like Denver's even been way better on defense this year than they were last year. Like they check so many boxes of like not just a championship team, but like one of those dynastic teams where it's like, this is what the Warriors did in 2000. from 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, right? This is what the Miami Heat did in the early 2010s. They won the title and then they came out the next year and wanted to be better, right? Like
Mhm.
this is what the Lakers did in the late 2000s, right? Like this is the hallmark of a historically great championship dynasty. And so like unless somebody gets hurt, I'm just not going to pick against them, to put it any
Right.
more simply.
Well, look, Jason, you're obviously, one of the best at this. I always appreciate you making the time. Want to respect your time. We've talked through everything from Denver, Bucks, POA,
We went all over the
Clippers,
place,
numbers,
yeah.
76ers, Heat, everything. I mean, we can go everywhere. So, I think that the range that you're able to show, and we haven't, and the fun thing is we've never even had a historic conversation. I would love to do like a
That stuff's fun, man. We
90s
got to
to
do some of
now
that this summer.
conversation.
We got to do that
Yeah,
this summer, man.
I'm all here for it. So, bro, I appreciate you coming on, man, and thanks for everything, bro. And then I look forward to having you again soon.
This is fun, man. I'm looking forward to next time.
All right, bro. Hey, make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. You can find Jason Hoops Tonight, YouTube, one of the best shows you can get. I'll see y'all later.